From the brainless Goombas in Mario to the brainless grunts in Halo, a good enemy brings a game together like a PB&J sandwich. Up until this point, my game has been nothing more than an empty room filled with only my regrets and the sweet, sweet sound of confetti popping out of this here box.
Hooray!
It is a pretty good box though, not gonna lie. Hello everyone, it's your boy, Soap, back at it again with another Saturday devlog. For those that are new here, I'm currently working on an FPS roguelike that's sort of a cross between Enter the Gungeon and Borderlands. Last week, I left us off with a complete visual overhaul by changing the game's visual style to that of an old school tune, like The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. Go check that video out if you haven't yet, or not, I'm not your mom. I came into this week with one plan: combat. Up until this point, I had ideas and loose concepts. The guns were in and they could shoot, swap up parts, and generally look real pretty, but it meant nothing if you didn't actually have anything to shoot. So, with combat as my focus, I went back to my guns to really finish the models for that cohesive style. I think the main issue with the system I was currently using was that it swapped out the bodies of the guns too, and since I was using an asset pack, a lot of the guns didn't have the same pivot point or reference size, so I decided to pivot myself and just keep the same core body model for all of the guns. After spending an embarrassing amount of time learning how to properly export from Blender to Unity in a way that wouldn't leave all my guns either way too big or way too small, I was able to get all the pieces I modeled into the game and replace the assets that I was using. The main benefit of making my own gun parts like this is that it makes the entire gun look like one proper piece, as the parts are modeled using the body as a base. So I chose to make this new shotgun barrel using Fortnite's square shotguns as a reference. With everything in the game and working as it should, I noticed that the iron sights I modeled into the gun weren't actually very effective, because they were smoothed out due to the toon shader. So I made this holographic sight that pops up when you aim down. I think it's incredibly satisfying and real fun just to open and close it. Whoop, woo, whoop, woo. Ah, good times. Still riding the hype train of feedback, I thought my guns were a little bit too static. I ended up following this tutorial on how to add gun tilt, so now you can see the gun tilt and sway when you look around. I feel like it's a subtle thing that just adds a whole lot to the overall feel. Next, I finally added arms to the game, just to hold onto the gun. Despite this, I didn't even bother changing the reload animation. It still just spins, leading to some really funny effects with the arms. Now that I added those final touches to the game, it was finally time for the players to learn how to take a bullet like they can dish them out. There was just one issue. The way that I built the bullets was using a full proper collider, not a trigger, and when it collided, that's how the game knew to damage whatever needed to take damage. Putting this same system onto the player was super easy, as I had already made the interface to track and handle damage when I was making my target dummies from earlier. I simply made this really basic turret that shot out bullets at a rapid rate. But because of the bullet collider, I was running into an issue where the player could jump up and stand on the bullets. So I needed to change my approach. At first, I tried using just a trigger, thinking it would do the same thing as the collider, but then I quickly realized that wouldn't be possible. The bullets simply moved too fast and phased through whatever they needed to collide with, only actually triggering a hit every 10 or so tries. This is where I actually hit a low point. I felt like the truth finally caught up to me. I wasn't a good programmer. I was just coasting on tutorials and whatever basic thing I managed to learn years ago. When it came to experimenting and trying new things, I just wasn't cut out for it. I wasn't a programmer. I was barely even a game developer. But no, this couldn't be where I let things fall apart. I had already made 3 videos on this project. I had you guys waiting for me. I couldn't disappoint you. So I put my nose to the grindstone and studied my butt off. I watched countless videos on how different games handle their bullets, learned why most games use raycast to shoot enemies instead of projectiles, then I came across what I needed. I found this one video on how fast bullets don't even try to use basic colliders. Rather, they track the bullet's current position and their last position and send a raycast between the 2 spots to check for collisions. I went through the Unity documentation, learned about the different types of raycasts I could do, and fixed my bullets so that they would properly collide and display the impact effect based on the last position, so they would always face the right direction. This was it. I had the strong foundation of a proper FPS game. My code was modular and performant. I just needed to actually work on the enemy AI, and I could make you all proud. Since I already had the Sentry that shot in a straight line, I thought to myself, what is a Sentry Turret? They can't be that difficult to make, right? And I was right. All I needed to do was make a script that turned the base of the Sentry towards the player and shoot at them if they were close enough. I also added a rev up timer and an overheat so that they weren't just constantly shooting at you. That way, the player can wait out the shots and then peek out from cover and destroy that dastardly fiend. Now that I had a basic enemy, it was time to get them spawning. I wrote this modular room script that takes a list of enemies and a list of spawn points and iterates over them, spawning an enemy at each point. I added this silly little animation and smoke explosion for when the turrets spawn in, and then added a door that locks behind you when the enemies are active. With this, I had practically every part. It could be a game. Sure, a really bad basic one, but it's playable. Rooms to clear, enemies that shoot at you, and random item drops from these boxes. But I couldn't just leave that there. I really had to bring it home. I needed one more enemy to really make it feel like a game. I worked late into the night learning how to use Unity's nav mesh system, making dynamic nav mesh surfaces so that they load with each room. Then, it was time. I already had a stationary sentry turret, now I just needed something that would chase you around the room. So I made this guy, Sword Droid 3000. Trademark pending. His entire purpose is to run at the player and do this little 3-slash animation that damages in a full circle around him. The best way to deal with him is to bait out the strike and then run away. With that, I was done. I had 2 enemies, a spawn system, clearable rooms, and a level of exhaustion. It was 4 AM and I was ready for bed. So I saved my project, packed up, and went to bed, really excited to write this script. The game's not quite playable yet, but I imagine that it's going to be there soon. You can get information of when the playtest is going to happen by joining my brand new Discord server. This is where I'll be hanging out to answer questions and receive suggestions, or just sit around to talk. When the playtest goes live, I'll be announcing it on my server with the link to the download file and a form to gather feedback on the project itself, so make sure you join to stay up to date on all things related to this project and others. That's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, as it was definitely a bit more dense than my other videos, but I hope that wasn't too bad. I'm trying to keep my videos fast and light in terms of content, as I want the videos to be easy to process while remaining funny and engaging. I go back to work next week to my full-time job, so I'll be slowing down a bit on making things for this game, but I'll still try to be posting at least twice a month with all the work that I've done. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye now.